Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah and it is time to choose my reads for July. So first of all, I'm going to go over the books that I have read. I had a pretty big TBR last month. For June, I had 9 books on my TBR, and I'm going to tell you right now, I have not read them all. So the first prompt that I had was by Sarah, and so I chose A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon. I did finish this one, and I gave it 4 or 4.5 stars. Either way, right around 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun with it. I was laughing out loud. It was cracking me up, and I just thought it was really fun. I thought it was just kind of out there and wild. It's blurbed by India Holton, who wrote the League of Gentlewomen Witches, and that one is kind of that you just have to jump in and go along for the ride, and that's how I felt this one was as well, that you just kind of have to jump right in and just go along for the ride and enjoy your time. So I really enjoyed this one, and I would like to continue in this series because I believe the next one is following her best friend and the head demon guy. So I think it's following them, and I really want to continue in this series because I had a really great time with it. The next prompt that I had was a standalone, and I chose Surviving Savannah. This is by Patty Callahan. This is following the Pulaski ship that is basically considered the Titanic of the South, that it sinks in 1838 and is later discovered and whatnot. So I chose this one for a standalone, and I have not read this one. I really want to, I just am not really in the mood for historical fictions lately, and I just keep putting them off. I need to pick it up, but I just haven't been really getting into them. The next one that I had was a 3-word title. I had this from the library and I had to return it, but that I had Girl in Ice. This was by Erica Frenchick. And I did read this one, and I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really interesting. It wasn't much of a thriller, but it was really interesting, and I really enjoyed it. I liked how everything played out. I thought it was pretty straightforward how everything was going to go down, but I did really enjoy it overall. The next prompt that I had was a wild card, and I chose Half Sick of Shadows by Laura Sebastian. This, all I knew about it was it is a Camelot retelling, and I made it up to chapter 10. I made it 66 pages in, and I was so bored. I didn't care about the characters or what was going on. Basically, the first 60 pages of this book is basically her having visions as a young girl into adulthood of the future and having the sight, and her having issues with her mother trying to suppress that. And I just didn't care. I probably am going to be unhauling this one just because I am not interested at this point. I read part of it, I read the first 10 chapters, and I just wasn't into it. So unfortunately this one, it doesn't even count for my DNFs because I didn't make it to 100 pages, but I will talk about it in a minute. After reading another book on my TBR and then starting this one, I was really worried I was going to get into a really bad slump, and so I had to put this down, and I just don't want to pick it back up again. The next prompt that I had was a series continuation / fantasy, and for that I chose Sunbringer. This is the second book to God Killer by Hannah Kaner. I do still really want to read this book, however, it just wasn't something that I was in the mood for, and I just didn't really feel like picking it up, and so I just haven't gotten to it. I do really want to get to this soon, but it's just was not in the cards for June. The next prompt that I had was between 350 and 400 pages, and for that I chose Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. I did read this one, and I gave it 5 stars. I had such a great time reading this. I read it in a single day. I had so much fun. I absolutely loved it. I love the treasure hunting aspect. I love the little bit of romance mixed into it. There's not a ton of it in here, but it was a really great time, and I really enjoyed it. The next book that I had was another 3-word title, and for that I chose Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. This is the same author of The Unmaking of June Farrow, which I've previously given 5 stars, and I did read this one. I gave it 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. I absolutely love her writing. I think she's a fantastic writer. She writes things very atmospherically, and she has beautiful writing style, and I loved this book. However, I just didn't like the way that it ended, which is why it didn't get 5 stars from me, unfortunately, but I'm super glad that I read it, and it was really good. The next book that I had was a thriller, and for that I have it out in my car, but I'm not going to go get it, and that is The Woman in the Dark by Vanessa Savage. I did read this one. This is the one that I was worried that it was going to put me in a slump with reading this one and then starting Half Sick of Shadows. I was really afraid it was going to get me into a slump because unfortunately Woman in the Dark I gave 2 stars. I did not like it. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like where the book went. I was hoping it was going to be more of like a haunted house / murder house thriller. However, this is 100% a domestic thriller with lots of trigger warnings, so make sure that if you are interested in this one that you do check those. There are trigger warnings for different kinds of abuse and suicidal triggers, as well as overdosing and cutting, and there's just a lot of different triggers in this book, and I just did not like it. This was not my kind of thriller. This is not my style of book, and I just didn't enjoy it. So I gave it 2 stars. I thought that book was interesting enough overall. It had a decent setup. It wasn't my thing, and I just didn't care for it, so I gave it 2 stars. And I think it goes without saying that I will be also unhauling that one. And last but not least, I had my 5-star prediction, and I had Republic of Thieves. Again, this is one that I really want to get to. It just wasn't in the cards for June. I just wasn't interested in picking this up. I've picked it up multiple times in the past. I've made it to 120 pages before, and I just haven't gotten super invested in it. These books, if you don't know, this is the 3rd book in the Gentleman Bastard series, the first one being The Lies of Locke Lamora. This is book 3. If you've read these, you know that sometimes, like with these books, it takes a little while to get fully invested in them. And I just wasn't in the mood for this chunky of a fantasy right now. And so I don't know, I just didn't get to this one. I still want to get to it this year. I just didn't get to it in June. I feel like I haven't been reading a lot in June, and so that's part of it. I didn't want to take on something this huge when I'm not really reading a whole lot. I wanted something like short and quick and fun, and this just wasn't what I was in the mood for. So that being said, I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have finished 5 books out of the 9. I DNF'd 1 before the 100-page mark, and so that leaves 4 that I just haven't even attempted. And since normally for this I would be throwing in or doing extra throws for my TBR. However, because of the fact that I haven't been reading as much with it being summer and with my kids and spending the weekends with my family, I'm just not reading as much. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to add in 4 to 5 more books onto my TBR when I'm not reading very much. Also, July is my birthday month. My birthday is the end of July. So I'm going to cut myself some slack. I'm going to give myself a break this time. I'm also going to actually be decreasing my number of throws this month. So instead of doing 6, I did cut it down to 4. And I will be choosing 4 books this month just to kind of give me a little bit of leeway with me not reading as much. With the summer, I'm going to just give myself a little bit of leeway to still be able to read the books on my TBR as well as work on some reading vlogs. I feel like I'm learning that vlogs are going to be the way to go because I can do short clips here and there rather than longer sit-down videos. Just a little bit easier with having the kids here. So that being said, I am going to do 4 throws for July, and I'm not going to take any punishment for not finishing my 9-book TBR from June because it's my birthday month. So I think that is everything, and at least for the housekeeping things. So let's get into my first throw. Okay, so for my first throw, I did get a mood read, and I'm not gonna put something set in stone on my TBR for this prompt, but I am going to put a tentative choice. And for that, I've decided to go with The Hunger of the Gods. This is by John Gwynne. This is book 2 in his Bloodsworn trilogy. The first one being The Shadow of the Gods. I read it at the beginning of June, and I really want to continue in this series and have both the first and second books finish, because book 3, The Fury of the Gods, comes out at the end of October, and I am really looking forward to it. This is my husband's favorite series right now, and so I'm really excited to continue with it. I really loved the first book. I gave it 5 stars. His writing is just incredible. He has such great world building, and I don't know how the heck he keeps track of these characters in these worlds, but he does it, and he does a fantastic job. So I'm going to tentatively put The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne on my TBR for a mood read. This one is like 620 some pages, so it is quite a chunker, but it is a continuation of a book that I read earlier this month, so hopefully that will keep me motivated to actually pick this one up and read it in July. Alright, so the next prompt that I got, I don't know if you can see that with the shimmer, but that is a beautiful cover. And for this one I had multiple different options. I narrowed it down to 2, and that was between The Deep by Alma Katsu. This is basically like a haunted Titanic type retelling. And I read The Hunger by her a few months ago, and I really enjoyed it. And so I'm really excited to pick this one up, and this cover is just gorgeous with the gold and the blue and the smoky look. And the other one was City of Brass. This is by S.A. Chakraborty. This is set in Cairo, following like genies and magic and whatnot. And so it came down, do I want a fantasy or do I want a historical horror? So I asked my kids to choose which cover they thought was prettier, and of course they ended up going with the red and gold of City of Brass. So this is the one I'm going to go with. I didn't realize it to start with, but this book is actually blurbed by Laini Taylor on the front. It says, an extravagant feast of a book, dizzyingly magical and still somehow utterly believable. Now, if you don't know, Laini Taylor wrote The Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and Strange the Dreamer, and those are 2 of my favorite series of all time. I have reread Daughter of Smoke and Bone multiple times, and I really want to reread Strange the Dreamer. I just haven't yet. But she's one of my favorite authors. I absolutely love Laini Taylor's writing. I find her world building is just incomparable, that I've never found any kind of fantasy with her intensity of world building. So I am going to go with City of Brass. This is also on my 24 books to read in 2024, so I'm excited to finally get to it. I've heard amazing things about this book. I don't remember much about it except it's magic, Egypt, and genies. So I'm really excited to try this one out. Like I said, I've heard incredible things about this book, and I'm really looking forward to trying it and seeing how I like it. The next prompt that I got was a seasonal classic, and I'm going to go for a book that I wanted to reread for years, and it kind of fits in every season, and that is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This is a beautiful copy that my sister got for me for Christmas this last year, and it has a lot of different additions to it from the original. It's got artwork in it and letters in it, and it's just a lot more interactive. And so I'm really excited to reread this. I read this back in like middle school or early high school, and I absolutely loved it, and I've wanted to reread it ever since, now that I'm a little bit older, and hopefully we'll be able to enjoy it even more. So I'm really excited to pick this one up this month for my seasonal classic. once again, we had one land right in the middle, and that is Secret TBR, as well as a one-word title. And so for this one, I am going to go with Bride. This is by Allie Hazelwood. This would be my first Allie Hazelwood, but I've also heard really great things about this book. This is a vampire werewolf romance, paranormal romance, and I don't know much about it other than the fact that it's like an arranged marriage between the two in order to keep peace and whatnot. And so I'm very, very excited to try this one out. Like I said, this is for a Secret TBR. This is a video that I have, a reading vlog that I have in progress right now. So I am going to put this one on for my Secret TBR. Okay, and that is it. I am cutting myself off at 4. I obviously have some pretty chunky books on my TBR this month still, so it's still going to be a challenge, but I'm really excited for it, and I'm really excited to revisit a classic that I have not read for a long time, continue on with some fantasy series, and starting out a new one that I've heard really great things about that I've had on my TBR for quite a while. So that being said, these are the 4 books that I have for my July TBR. I have The Hunger of the Gods for a mood read, City of Brass for a beautiful cover, Little Women for a seasonal classic, and Bride for my Secret TBR / one-word title. So, do you think that I will be able to finish all of these or not, especially with not reading as much with having the kids home? Have you read any of these? Do you enjoy them? Do you have specific thoughts? How is City of Brass? Because like I said, I've heard amazing things, and the fact that Laini Taylor blurbed the front of it really caught my attention as well. If you like this video, please feel free to like and subscribe. Comment down below your thoughts, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!